Good morning and welcome to another, I think we're into episode 22 of the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. Now, I think it's a bit of a busy morning for everyone this morning, so if you get a bit of noise from around the place, sorry about that. I'm actually on a bit of a boys' trip down in Ohakune, so yeah, not normal studio environment. You might have some random characters pop up in the background that have nothing to do with anything. But
well, it's not really snow.
Yeah, no, we've had rain, but I don't necessarily need snow down here. I borrowed from a company called Storm Rides an electric scooter for doing a bike trail down here that's got off-road suspension, 4 kilowatts of output, all-wheel drive, it'll do 100 kilometers an hour.
Well, you won't do that in the old coach road.
No. Well, hopefully I can just stay upright at 20. If I can stay upright at 20, I'll be pretty happy. But anyway, let's move on. We've got, of course, our usual panel here. Graham McDonald, the man who loves a good aqua, and Matthew Hanson, the man who loves a good aqua if it's in Hot Wheels form. Our first story of today is cars to cost thousands of more because of clean car. Well, that headline somewhat comes from the DAR files. Subaru New Zealand Managing Director Wallace Dumper believes that the government's incoming clean car standard changes are going to have a sweeping effect on vehicle pricing across the industry. In a statement issued about Subaru's updated Outback 2.4T, Dumper said he expects the model to be lumped with additional costs when the next wave of clean car standard changes are applied on January 1, 2023. CCS will not affect Subaru, but the entire NZ automotive industry. Will not only affect Subaru, but the entire New Zealand automotive industry. And the reality is that come 2023, many new petrol engine cars may cost customers thousands more than they do today. I kind of feel like this was a bit obvious, and it seems interesting now that a few of these companies are going, oh, these prices are going to rise. I kind of thought we knew that already.
Well, maybe we did, Richard, as a collective trade, but I think now you're seeing the OEMs and distributors and the likes of Subaru actually making it clear to the public. And so if you think about it, the last year or two has been a consultation, or I would argue and say almost a sham consultation process for CCS. But within good faith, the industry's been working behind the scenes. It's not the time to take your concerns to the public. Well, now we have the rough framework, so to speak. Now's the time to speak out and say, hey, look, this is what it's going to cost you. Be aware. So I think the timing probably is accurate. This is the right time to start talking about those price rises.
Have we had any updates lately in the structure or the detail?
Have you seen it?
Yeah. I think we're still waiting, aren't we?
Exactly.
Well, I think there's
and of course, interesting that
there's a consulting period, I think, fairly shortly, but other than that, I think it's all fairly quiet.
But I think that was for the regulations that were also supposed to have been out months ago, and we're now 3 months, because it's really December 1 when this actually kicks off. From a distributor's perspective, the work kicks off when we're still a wee way down the, there's water to go under the bridge before they even get that far. So yeah, still know what's going on. Perhaps that's something we'll.
Richard, you're stuck in the snow in Ohakune.
Yeah, it's going to be messy. Have I frozen? Did I freeze?
Not with anything important. You're all good.
All good. Right, no worries. Actually, maybe I'd muted myself.
Matthew and I can talk.
As long as you can hear me now.
Lead away.
All good. Right. Anyway, let's move on to the next step. A bank in Australia has confirmed it will stop offering loans for fossil fuel cars. An Australian bank has announced unprecedented changes that will see it phasing out loans on new cars by 2025 in an effort to reduce emissions. Bank Australia confirmed the news late last week. It aims to achieve net zero internally by 2035, explaining that it believes a 2050 net zero target is too late. The bank terms fossil fuels vehicles as all in pure internal combustion engine models and hybrid models. It's unclear whether plug-in hybrids are applicable. They've had some interesting reactions over in Australia, haven't they, Matthew?
Yeah. It's inevitably it's been a bit negative in Australia. There's been a bit of negative press on the likes of Sky News. Bank Australia had to close. Well, I don't think they closed comments, but they restricted comments on the social media post. A lot of people asking about farming equipment. Does this apply for tractors? Does this apply for other things that I'm going to apply with your bank? and a handful of people coming in saying that they're going to cease dealing with them. But on the flip side, the bank itself said that a lot of these changes were customer led. We've seen a lot of banks in the last. It feels like even just the last 2 months, a lot of banks have come out of the woodwork with some kind of EV related scheme, at least in New Zealand. But potentially it's just a bank, being opportunistic in current dire straits, trying to get a bit of positive press.
Yeah, yeah.
It's well said, actually, Matthew, to be fair. So first question is, how big is this actual bank in terms of the lending book? How relative actually is it to the marketplace? And secondly, and here again, I know Graham says something negative about EVs. I don't. I just think that I just see too many areas where the public is not being necessarily being encouraged, but being forced, as opposed to what I'd see as a process of positive, natural choice. And you'd argue and say if a bank is refusing to lend on a vehicle purchase on the basis of your choice, that to me seems first of all a bit counterintuitive, and secondly, I'm not comfortable with that either. Why should the bank dictate, if I had a relationship with them, what I can or I can't buy? Far better to put incentives in place for me to purchase an EV than it is a disincentive.
I guess the question comes down for the bank of risk, and like I've mentioned this before, speaking to a senior leasing official in New Zealand, they were as a leasing company, they were looking at where their line would be drawn on whether they could continue to lease petrol vehicles, just because of the exposure to risk they're getting in regards to regulation, in regards to value at the other end. But I don't think that is. I mean, this is very much a positioning from Bank Australia. Mm-hmm. They aren't a major bank. They are, I believe, a cooperative or have some kind of member-owned structure. It's an interesting move. I think what we've seen is a little more pragmatic in New Zealand. We've seen banks offering low interest options down as far as I think 1% through ANZ, and a lower rate through there's a low rate through Westpac and a few others, or these are attached to houses. The main the finance companies in the automotive space have gotten in on it too. There's a couple offering EV special rates. That's good. I think I guess maybe this bank knows something we don't, but it's certainly an interesting move.
Incentivize, don't disincentivize. That's my mantra.
Yeah, I've understood they've knocked hybrids on their head as well. But hey, look, you got to respect. I think you got to respect them for their confidence, and probably the bigger issue in Australia is whether the supply is there in comparison to other markets, because there's certainly been a bit less of an interest in EVs going into Australia than there has been in New Zealand. Now, continuing on EVs and continuing on Australia, New Zealand dealers set Atto 3 servicing costs. While dozens of Australian order holders for the BYD Atto 3 have taken to social media in outrage over what some are calling extremely high servicing costs, that's not expected to be the case in New Zealand. A list of minimal service requirements to keep the Atto 3 in good order has been sent to each BYD dealer around the country, as New Zealand has a franchise dealer model which is different to Australia, says BYD Auto NZ brand manager Warren Wilmot. Let's run through this. I think the fixed pricing that's being offered by, for example, Andrew Sims for BYD Auckland, BYD Dunedin, is $799 for 3 years, which I think is a pretty sharp deal, considering the Atto 3 BYD goes to the extent of requiring the coolant and I think transmission fluid to be replaced on the vehicle every 40,000 kilometres, which, I think is not necessarily a bad thing. What they were looking at in Australia over, and it's hard to compare because it was over 6 years, was just short of 4,000 Australian dollars to service the vehicle. The problem being is that these are people who've been told all this time that Teslas don't need to be serviced, and there's no fixed servicing of Teslas. I had a chat the other day with the senior figure in the Tesla community in New Zealand, and he said that they would not advise not servicing your Tesla, and no good Tesla owner doesn't service their Tesla. So this whole comparison in Australia between BYD wanting servicing and these guys not wanting servicing is potentially not fair. The interesting thing in Australia, and I think we've been gentle on Luke Todd and Nextport and BYD EV Direct in Australia up until now, is they are absolutely lunching the launch of BYD over there. They've made so many mistakes now to the point where I think BYD in China is going to be looking very closely at that relationship, because brand damage is either imminent or already has happened. So they set out to launch, they repeatedly overpromised. They underpriced the cars initially, which ended up having to rise. They promised a warranty now that they can't meet, and they've downgraded at the same time as they announced these servicing costs. So things like that's a 6-year warranty. Originally they promised 7 or 8, and they've now pulled things like the HVAC. I think is pretty much out of the warranty after a year, and the suspension is out of the warranty after 3 years. So halfway through the warranty, and half the car's not covered.
This is in Australia. Yeah, I mean this is
and look, this is so this is an interesting one. So Nextport is primarily a company that was importing and assembling buses in Australia. They picked up that brand. They made a lot of good talk about being the new Tesla and following a very similar direct model. And they got down the track and they just realized I don't think they had the ability to do it. So first they had to bring in an outside servicing company to do the deliveries called MyCar. And then they've discovered further down they needed more help. So Eagers Automotive has taken a stake and is now distributing through that. And the reality is that while they may have priced this all up for this direct model with those very simple structures, they've now realized they need the help. That help is going to cost. What's that going to mean in the long run? Is these servicing costs, which are through the MyCar network, an independent service network, higher because they've essentially got to help MyCar make back what they're losing from no longer doing deliveries because Eagers are doing the deliveries? It's a mess.
There's a question there, Richard. Have you compared like to like in terms of servicing cars in Australia that are not BYD or not, for that matter, EVs? Because I think the general consensus around Australia is that the dealer market over there, and I could be shot in a few weeks for saying this, but the dealer market over there is famous for being pretty predatory in terms of consumer pricing and gouging and customer service and all the things that we take for granted over here. It's a very, very different model that would appear over there. I mean, the protectionist nature of the new car industry, in particular the FCAI and others, is it that this day they thought they could get away with $4,000? And it may be that the servicing cost for a regular ICE vehicle over a 6-year period could also be close to that figure, but we just don't know about it. We don't know because we're not exposed to it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think you need to compare. Yeah, so this is more expensive than an MG ZS to service.
But I mean, okay,
by quite a margin.
Not just your MG, but I mean other vehicles in general in the service sector. I know that there are a number of brands in Australia that are remarkably prickly in terms of what they think they can charge and get away with. It's just a whole different mindset. Thank goodness we live in New Zealand, where we've got, I think, a pretty good handle on I suppose, corporate responsibility to our marketplace to deliver value for money. And whether that's just commercial pressure, it's just the way we do things in New Zealand, I'm not too sure. But by God, it works.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see the comparison with the MG and the BYD. I think that a lot of people are up over in arms because they think Teslas don't need servicing, which is utter BS. It's just not true. Vehicles need to be looked after, need to be serviced. But I just think it's ongoing changes in what BYD Australia, EV Direct has been telling customers and doing. These guys have been promised cars for months that have never been delivered. No one's test driven them in Australia. Yet supposedly they've got 1,000 cars there, all sorts of rumours going around, not helped by not having a decent supply of information out of the distributor. It's just big motorcycle going past. It's concerning that it's turning off all these buyers, hundreds and hundreds of buyers who are new to the EV space from this brand, and they should have brought in proper automotive industry experience at the start.
Potentially, you'd argue, Richard, and say that for the EV sector, turning them off the concept of an EV, because to me, part of the appeal of the MG EV range and the BYD was to bring new buyers, like non-EV buyers, into market. Okay, so trying to convert the unconverted. Tesla buyers, by and large, in New Zealand, are people that have already got a pretty good handle on EVs, EV tech, the willingness to embrace new tech. In Australia, that's the whole BYD marketplace. And look at the MG; they're new buyers altogether, people that hadn't considered owning an EV. And if you turn them off the experience at this point, it could take a long time to catch up, especially if they go and buy another ICE car instead, brand new. Yep. And then that cycle takes the extra 2, 3, 4 years until they're ready to turn over and look at an EV. So it's destructive to the concept.
We've got to be clear. This isn't a BYD problem. This is a Nextport problem. So it's a Nextport Luke Todd problem.
But the
in
consumer
that,
doesn't see that. I said the consumer doesn't see that.
no, but no, we need to be clear in that if you take it in New Zealand, the New Zealand distributor has not had the same issues
No,
at
no,
all.
agree. But from an
No,
Australian perspective,
they've been so it's not what BYD's feeding into the market. It's, I think, they just potentially a lack of automotive industry experience in the process. And I'm sure that it's good we see people come in and try and break the mold and do something different once in a while. But you've got to be damn sure when you go and change the structure and try and change the system that you are going to get it right, because these are big purchases you're messing with. And I'm glad to see Eagers are in there, because Eagers will, I'm sure, want to put out a quality product. The car itself is great. I know I've been driving one for a couple of weeks now. It's going to be interesting. People have been threatening to cancel on the Facebook pages. Matthew, do you think many of them have actually followed through?
Well, I mean, on one hand, I would have thought, maybe it's a bit of hot air, but on the other hand, we've seen a lot of EV owners are quite willing to throw things away if they see fit. I mean, just recently, Tesla, launched the Model Y in New Zealand, and instantly the next day, a whole bunch of Model 3s appeared for sale on TradeMe. So I think the EV
loyalty.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it
A
is
new shiny thing.
Oh no, yeah.
But I think they are a slightly different buyer in terms of, I guess, their loyalty to an individual product or an individual thing. I feel like they're quite a fluid buyer, the typical EV customer these days. And stuff like this doesn't necessarily help the whole narrative that Chinese cars are going to come in and absolutely dominate the EV space. It shows that you still need to deliver on the fundamentals and the traditional things that we need, that we see from known names.
Yes.
Yeah. And no, I've forgotten my train of thought there. Anyway, get your shit together next port. It's don't ruin the BYD brand. Australia, the team in New Zealand are doing a great job. People are getting their cars, they're happy. We'll see. Oh, sorry. The interesting thing about the Teslas going on TradeMe and so forth is that there are a lot of people still who I think see the Model 3 price at a certain time and think, I can grab one of those, get an early thing, arrive at, click the subsidy, sell it, make a bundle. What they don't seem to realise is the second a whole pile of Model 3s go online, the prices drop real quick. Like when the Model Y was released, the price of Model 3s transacting on TradeMe dropped something like $15,000 in the space of 3 days. It was crazy. So I think some of these people get caught out, and they need to be very careful. Anyway, vehicle sales see a largest drop in June quarter. Motor vehicle and parts sales saw the biggest decline in retail spending in the June 2022 quarter. According to Stats NZ, the sector was down 5.8%, or 230 million, in seasonally adjusted volumes after a 5.3% fall in the March 2022 quarter. Stats New Zealand's Melissa McKenzie quotes, some vehicle dealers commented in the surveys that supply issues led to lower sales this quarter. This may also have influenced the peak seen in vehicle and parts retailing in December 2021 quarter and the fall in the June 2022 quarter. I think for the new market, there is an element of delivery there. That they're selling stuff that's just not here. You can't count it till it's arrived. But I think that it is starting to cool. Graham, things still looking a little chilly out there in used car land?
So it's the 3 C's out in the land, okay? So you've got crap weather, you've got crap supply, and you've got crap confidence. Now, all those are variables, of course. But I can't speak for the new industry in terms of supply. We know there are a lot of issues around supply of cars amongst assorted brands, particularly the ones that sell a lot of volume. And that will have an impact downstream. In the used sector, I mean, supply is really tough. You've seen the numbers coming across the wharf. This is certainly going to be, unless things change dramatically, 2022 is going to be a very muted year in terms of used vehicle volumes coming across the water to New Zealand. And it's an ongoing issue. In fact, there's a bit of a segue to that. I was talking to a couple of our Japanese buyers yesterday. We were busily in the auction lanes in Japan trying to buy. And one of our buyers said this today, he said, I think this has been the most expensive day for hybrids I have ever seen. And I thought, because we were out there with checkbook open. Really tough buying market. And I'm just, hoping for our sakes of all of us that it actually cools off at some stage. But supply is definitely an issue. Consumer confidence, that is still definitely a problem as well. And it doesn't matter whether you talk the numbers up or down in the media, people are still very conservative at the moment in their spending. So yeah, and then of course the weather. That's June and July for you. The weather's been rubbish, and it makes it a whole lot harder to get people out onto dealerships to actually buy motor vehicles. And then yes, you know what? Despite the fact that when people would like to think we do everything online, people still want to come out and they want to look and they want to feel and they want to touch and they want to talk, and it just holds that whole process back.
Mm-hmm. Now, this isn't on the schedule, but we might as well throw it in there. Just following up on the various NZAI Too Cheap things we've seen in the last week, that Gordon Shaw has been appointed as interim CEO. Mm-hmm. That's certainly an interesting move, and we've also seen a new appointment to his old job, two jobs. I think there's been someone in between at Vins.
Yeah.
Can you tell? Have you got that in front of you, Matthew? Can you tell us about who's been placed there?
I think I might do over at Vins. So the new appointment at Vins is Tony Gibson. Former Port of Auckland boss.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be starting. He left Port of Auckland in July. The previous
21. He left in 21. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Gibson kicked off. He kicked off this week actually on August 22nd.
I think that's a good landing place for Tony. He's a great. I've met him a couple of times.
He's a
lovely
good
guy.
Operator. He's a really good operator, and he's
he did leave the port under a tiny little bit of a cloud, but I think that Vins is a great place for him to land and perhaps regain some of that hard-fought reputation. A great score there by the Jevic group. And I guess, Optimus Jevic, not sure what the direct lineage of ownership of Vins is these days. I guess that means that Ewan Philpott, the director, can step back aside into overviewing that, and Jevic, he did a great job sitting in there in between. Gordon taking over.
I was going to say, the advantage of Tony stepping into the shoes too is that it won't take him long to get up to speed. So he'll be an operator who's got a really good knowledge of how the industry actually works. So rather than bring in an outside director or chief executive from a different corporate sphere altogether, and has to effectively learn where the four wheels in the car go, Tony can get in there from day one and make things happen. And I think a really, really smart move.
Yeah, I guess the danger in that job is they could have brought someone in that was focusing more on, who was from more of a retail side, because Vins is a double-sided business. It has the retail face and a very supply chain face, and they brought someone in who has all that supply chain experience. So I think that's going to be a huge bonus for the trade. Gordon Shaw at Too Cheap Cars, I think it is a temporary position, but he is a very good administrator, and I suspect that's what the company needs at the moment, is someone to go in and tidy the structure up. I imagine they'll bring someone potentially with more of a retail experience level in once they get further on the track. But I think Gordon's the right man for now. Now, Tour de New Zealand cautious over right-hand drive Tundra. Tour New Zealand Chief Executive Neeraj Lala says that the company is considering bringing right-hand drive versions of the US-built Tundra pickup to New Zealand. It was confirmed this week that Toyota Australia is working with Walkinshaw Automotive on a right-hand drive conversion program for the full-size ute. For those who don't know, Walkinshaw essentially converts both the Ram and Silverado for New Zealand as well, or for New Zealand Australia as well. It is something we're looking at, but we haven't made a decision on, said Lala. It's potentially available. My concern at the moment is just around the impact to our total CO2 performance. Because yes, that car would come with one heck of a CO2 thing. Even though I think they do a hybrid drivetrain in that. Matthew, can you recall?
Yeah, they do. So the hybrid has a CO2 rating, I think I wrote, of about 280 something. And to put that into context, so that's a lot. But I mean, a Hilux is 230 something, so it's not a world away from a Hilux. But that is the hybrid version. So a non-hybrid version.
Did you say 220? Did you say 228?
I think it was around 230 for the Hilux.
Right. So potentially they could reduce their CO2 by replacing Hiluxes with Tundra hybrids.
You know what? They can stick whatever they like on it. They'll do it, and it'll sell like hot pies outside the tuck shop door on a Thursday in the middle of winter. It'll fly. And here's the thing, Toyota. We're talking about brand loyalty and Tesla and things. Toyota also is one of those brands that has terrific brand loyalty. And if there's one place they've been probably lacking in recent years, is having a step up from the Hilux. And Ranger, I'd argue, is always the new version of Ranger has sort of maintained that slightly higher pitch up from the Toyota in terms of spec and bits and pieces. I know it's a completely separate product, but it gives Toyota some real, this is real thumping ground stuff in terms of a hero flagship truck to sort of stick one up the Ram owners out there and the others. I mean, look, build it, they will come.
I guess the interesting balance to that, though, is that Ford Australia is doing the same thing with the F-150 at the moment through a company out of Thailand. And if Ford New Zealand chose to bring that here, of course, in America and pretty much every other market they compete, the Ford F-150 just smacks the living crap out of every other ute. So, or pickup truck. So, yeah, we could, weirdly, while we're trying to go low CO2, end up with a bit of a battle, though. Then you see things like potentially, if the F-150 makes it here, could one day the Lightning make it here? Who knows? Who knows?
Well,
a little interesting.
Will they be legitimate truck users, though, Richard? Or will they be illegitimate?
Little tidbit of information here that I have, and that is that in, I think, January, February, March next year, we will see the arrival of a hybrid ute. I can't say which brand, but it'll be an existing product in market, and it'll be a petrol electric hybrid, not a plug-in hybrid. So between that and we're potentially going to get a Triton plug-in hybrid next year and the LDV, we're starting to see some options come through.
See, I think that makes huge sense, particularly in that commercial ute sector, outside of the government departments that have to run an EV because of their contracts. As a hybrid ute makes great sense, like really good sense. And I'm almost surprised we haven't seen a product to market yet. So look, whoever it is, and I know you can't say who it is, but I think you probably make some little guesses there. Well done, because I think, again, that's actually quite a smart commercial move, looking at pragmatism over policy.
Yeah. Right, I think that's enough today. I am going to go off and enjoy my non-snowy day at Ohakune.
For you.
Yes. Now, don't forget, AutoTalk Live. It is still ticking along. We will be releasing another round of speakers and details hopefully next week. Don't forget to get in and get your tickets. They are moving at a fairly steady pace at the moment. autotalk.co.nz/live. They're $2.99 a person, which is, I think, pretty darn good value. And you get to see me and Graham making a fool of ourselves on stage, and maybe Matthew if we come up with another plan around recording the live that week there.
I'll be hiding in the toilets, I think.
Full of alcohol in us. Yeah, so you get to throw your sippy cups full of
you'll be
paid for AutoTalk paid for alcohol at the stage. You don't like what you have to say.
Will the crowd have access to a giant tub of tomatoes to throw? That's what I want to know.
Hey, that's a good idea, Richard. We should look at that.
No, we shouldn't. Okay. No, we shouldn't. No, we
tub of
shouldn't.
tomatoes would run you more price than the cost of the alcohol anyway. So.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, true.
Cut and run that idea. Nice.
Yeah, it's where they take the tomatoes out of the can that makes a big difference as well. Right, I'm going to go and hit the go on the end graphic. We'll catch everyone next week. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Run over to the eVisibly on YouTube channel. There's a great new video up on there as well that shows the delivery of BYD. And yeah, we'll see everyone next week.